Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May your brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and in this video, I'll be profiling an article from RT.com titled, Western Military Dominance Has Ended, says Moscow. The West's ability to impose its interests on various parts of the world has diminished, according to Russia's defense minister. And this is just another example of biblical prophecy taking place as we speak. The reputation, the prestige, the so-called good guy image that these Edomites are so-called white people, especially in the Western world, Western Europe, the United States of America, Canada, Australia, etc., being diminished on the global stage. Hey, these nations, especially in the third world, bucking up to you Western powers and telling you that, hey, look, we're sick of you and all the things you do in our country to destabilize us, such as overthrowing sovereign leaders and setting up puppets to allow the Western powers to rape that nation of its resources, funding terrorist groups to further destabilize the country, and putting sanctions on those countries if they don't want to follow after the agendas of the West. You know, the alphabet agenda beginning with LG, feminism, capitalism, democracy, the list goes on and on. These nations are telling you they're sick of you meddling in their affairs, and in some cases, like in Mali, they're kicking you out of their countries, like what they did with France. And while these nations have bucked up to the Western powers in the past, they're really feeling emboldened now because they see an alternative to dealing with the West in the East, mainly with Russia and the BRICS nations, who are showing them viable economic and military alternatives. But before we continue in this article, let's go to the book of Obadiah. I'm going to start at verse 1. And the header reads, Edom will be humbled. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, concerning Edom, or you so-called white people. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen, that ambassador being the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, as well as the brothers coming in the spirit of GMS, going out onto the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this, pushing out that vibration of you Edomites being the root cause of the planet Earth out there, and these other nations, picking up on that vibration and following suit. And an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. And we can see that these different nations all across the planet are rising up against you Edomites, especially you Edomites in the Western world. Like I said, they're sick of you meddling in their affairs, and in some cases, they're kicking you out of their countries. And it's going to culminate into a physical battle with all these heathen nations being gathered down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat in that Middle Eastern region for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the main part of World War III in Joel chapter 3, verse 2. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. And this has a twofold meaning. On the one hand, you Edomites as a nation are actually the global minority. And then on the other hand, like I said at the beginning of the video, your global prestige and reputation amongst these different nations across the planet is being greatly despised and being made small among the heathen. Asian, African, and Latin American states have seen their roles in the global arena increase. And why is that? Because they're seeing an alternative with the BRICS nations. These BRICS nations are investing in these smaller nations economically and militarily, building them up. Asian, African, and Latin American states have seen their roles in the global arena increase as Western military dominance has started to wane. That's according to Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, who was speaking at the 21st International Security Conference in Moscow on Tuesday. And it's also a part of biblical prophecy that Russia would be the main nation that would be a protector, a guard unto these smaller nations against these Edomites in the West. And if you just look up what's going on in these different areas, like on the African continent or in Latin America, you can see that there's a change in the wind from the west to the east. In Africa, like I just mentioned, in Mali, they actually kicked out Western forces such as the French. In Niger, they just had a coup where a military government took over and overthrew the government that had Western sympathies. And also in Burkina Faso, they're calling for the West to stop meddling in their affairs. And who's the main nation that they're receiving help from economically and militarily? Russia. And then in Latin America, you're seeing the same thing. Venezuela is receiving help from Russia, China, and Iran. In Cuba, China has been building up a military presence there. And then in Mexico, they're looking for closer ties with Russia and China. The minister argued that Russia's military operation in Ukraine has put an end to the dominance of the collective West in the military sphere and bolstered anti-colonial movements worldwide, and that military operation in Ukraine really opened up the eyes of a lot of these nations to the detrimental effects of having the US dollar as the global world reserve currency, because they saw all the sanctions and penalties and restrictions that the West, really led by the United States, put on Russia over that military operation in Ukraine. And the US dollar was their main means of economic warfare. So again, a lot of these nations woke up to the detrimental position of the US dollar and don't want to get caught in the same boat as Russia got caught in, where if they don't want to play ball with the West, then sanctions are used against them and the US dollar is used against them. So they're looking for alternatives, which has mainly been what? Looking towards those BRICS nations. And a video came out recently which was talking about the eventual rollout of a BRICS currency, which would be backed by gold, other commodities, and natural resources. And in this video, this is what they said. This is not my words, so you can take it how you want to take it and do your own research. But they said that it would take $55 US to equal one of these hypothetical BRICS currencies. So if that were the case, when a BRICS currency is rolled out, that would throw the Western world into a tailspin. Just as the defeat of fascism by the Red Army in Europe in the last century gave a powerful impetus to anti-colonial movements throughout the world, so will the defeat of the Ukrainian neo-fascists supported by the West serve as a factor in counteracting modern neocolonialism, Shoigu said, noting that Russia is currently fighting not just the armed forces of Ukraine, but the entire collective West. Shoigu acknowledged the addition of several states from the Asia-Pacific region to the ranks of the anti-Russia bloc. Russia has, however, dispelled many myths about the superiority of Western military standards in its confrontations with Kiev's forces, which have been provided with billions of dollars of foreign weaponry, Shoigu claimed. it has become clear that the use of Western weapons and supposedly advanced NATO tactics and training cannot ensure superiority on the battlefield, he added. And besides showing the detrimental effects of having the US dollar as the world reserve currency, the Ukrainian military operation has also shown a lot of the ineffectiveness in the Western and NATO powers. Russia is whipping Ukraine's ass. But that's it with this article. The main points I wanted to get to was the fact that a lot of these other nations outside of the West, your so-called third world nations, are bucking up to the Western powers of these Edomites and not taking shit anymore. And again, like in Mali, kicking them out of their country, and they're moving towards the east, seeing greener pastures, dealing with Russia and those other BRICS nations, which, like I said, is also a part of biblical prophecy. But let's go to Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, which is the biblical name for Russia, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and those Russians are also Edomites. And though it may seem like I've been bigging up the Russians in this video, those Russians are Edomites and scumbags as well, and they're going down too. And the Most High is against them, as it just said, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog. But right now, the main focus is on the downfall of these Western Edomite powers, especially the United States of America, which is the ringleader of the Western powers, that whore that rides upon the beast with the 10 horns in Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. The 10 horns, speaking of the EU or European Union, beginning with the first 10 common markets of the EU, back when it was known as the European Economic Community, and that beast being NATO. Verse 4, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. And that's the Most High putting those Russian Edomites back in that old confrontational Soviet Union spirit, which we can clearly see with their military operation in Ukraine, how they helped Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the Syrian civil war fight against the Western powers, in that case mainly led by the United States of America and the State of Israel, who set up that proxy mercenary force, ISIS, to try to overthrow his country, and then Russia building back up its reputation across the planet, globally, across the planet, economically through the BRICS, and militarily, them setting military installations in different parts of the planet, a major part being in that Arctic Ocean region. And I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, and all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Russia's military might, tanks, helicopters, soldiers, artillery pieces, hypersonic missiles, S-300s, S-400s, etc., etc. And we can see that they've been begun to be brought forth down there in Ukraine, and this is they're going to further be brought forth into that Middle Eastern region, again, to take part in the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon in Joel chapter 3, verse 5. Persia, which is the ancient name for Iran, and Russia is Iran's top ally. Ethiopia, which is in Africa, and Libya, also in Africa with them, all of them with shield and helmet. And just recently, Ethiopia talked about dropping the US dollar in favor of moving towards the BRICS. Russia has a heavy presence in these nations on the African continent. Gomer, which is speaking of Turkey, which Contrary to what they may push out on the surface with, Russia and Turkey button heads, hey, they're ultimately going to be allies during World War III. Gomer, or Turkey and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the North Quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company, or your allies that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them, Russia being a guard unto these smaller nations, economically and militarily, and a lot of these nations cleaving unto Russia. Hence, why you've got the Russian defense minister confident in saying that Western military dominance has ended and the West's ability to impose its interests on various parts of the world has diminished. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope your sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.